So nowadays we talk a lot about embodied carbon. And this makes it much more important to work with the material question. How much material do you use? What kind of materials? To use renewable materials much more. And that's why also the circularity has been a very important issue in the building industry right now. We need to keep what is already there and to take much better care of what the materials and the constructions that has already been produced. A key actor in the building industry, I would say, is the building material manufacturers. Because I think that it would be more efficient if the manufacturers take back their old products and create new out of them. I'm Anna Graaf, I'm Director of Sustainability for White Arkitekter and a member of the Swedish Delegation for Circular Economy.
So what does sustainability mean to you?
For me, it's about a holistic perspective. It's about material and how to use the resources, to decrease the use of resources and use them in a more efficient way. To reduce energy, to of course also work with reducing climate impact, but also how to enhance the biological diversity and create a sustainable way of life and to create possibilities for people to live in a sustainable way. So the social aspect is also very important in the terms of sustainability.
And we hear a lot about carbon neutrality. When did that aspect enter the debate?
It has taken quite a long time in the building sector, but to the carbon discussion started, I would say, with Al Gore and the film Inconvenient Truth. And then we had the climate agreement, the UN climate agreement, and after that the building sector, at least in Sweden, started to focus very much on the climate issue.
In terms of climate neutrality, what does that mean in the building sector?
Well, first of all, it's about reducing the need for energy and also to use renewable energy as much as possible. But then the building materials itself has a very high impact, climate impact. So nowadays we talk a lot about embodied carbon. And this makes it much more important to work with the material question. How much material do you use? What kind of materials? To use renewable materials much more. And that's why also the circularity has been a very important issue in the building industry right now. Well, it's pretty easy to calculate on energy. Nowadays we also calculate on the embodied carbon in materials. You do life cycle calculations. But the difficult part is that you do these life cycle calculations in a bit different way in the different countries. What materials you include and also what phases in the building during a building's life cycle you calculate. You can start with production, the materials, the energy, but also what is happening after the buildings when you're going to tear it down. So it's not that easy to compare directly the carbon emissions from a building in Sweden with one in UK or one in Germany. So it's very important to be transparent. What have you actually included in this calculation? I think regulation is important because that creates a standard or similar level for everyone. So you have a minimum level that everyone needs to work from. But the industry itself, businesses, they are the one pushing the development forward. And we notice very much now that the industry, they also see the business opportunities in the sustainability question, that you need to transform, and if you are an early adopter in these questions, you are also, it is definitely a concurrence and a business issue. There is also a lot legislation from Europe, EU and so on that also push actually the development forward.
So what does sustainable use of materials actually mean?
I would say materials that have low content of chemicals, that are reusable or recyclable, or also that are bio-based.
And you actually suggested 15 years ago that the most sustainable thing might be to not build anything at all, but it wasn't well received at the time.
No, they thought it was very progressive to say that, well, as an architecture business we don't build anything new. But today there is a completely different mentality in the building industry, that we need to keep what is already there and to take much better care of what the materials that and the constructions that has already been produced.
Are there examples of recycled materials in the last few years where we have made progress?
I think, well, a key actor in the building industry, I would say, is the building material manufacturers. Because I think that it would be more efficient if the manufacturers take back their old products and create new out of them. And we see today it's some floor manufacturers, they take back their old floors and create new, or to recycle like metals, aluminium, etc. But it's also new services, which is quite also interesting, that you actually buy a product as a service.
Do you see that that's where we need more international governance in terms of sustainability, or do you think that it's more the responsibility of the private sector itself to deal with this?
Well, it is already moving forward. From EU, for instance, they are sort of supporting this material flows. There is now compulsory, or it will probably come, that you need to have a product pass for every material you produce, and that is so it's easier to understand, first of all, the carbon impact or climate impact, but also how you can reuse or renovate or repair the materials. So that is a start to understand and also to know how much materials do we actually have that is already produced out there in society, and how can we reuse that material or recycle them in a more efficient way. How can we actually demount a construction and how to produce drawings that actually inform the one that is going to build the building, and how it can be demounted in the future. It will be a very important issue, and also how you can repair the building, or how you can separate materials from each other.
So focusing just on architects, what can they do to forward sustainable use of materials?
I would say it's very much about a new mindset. You need to have the mindset, what can we use that is already there? I'm going to create a new building, but what can I use for that building that is already either on the site or elsewhere in a database or whatever. But then you also need to think what is happening with the building after you have used it, but also how can you use the building in different ways during its lifetime. If you make a school, how can that be used in the future for other purposes, or an office, how can that be used for instance, residential? And then also how can you demount the building when it's actually used, or maybe even move it to other places. So more to think the whole life cycle of a building, and then of course also to think about quality. But architects want to do quality. That's our main purpose, of course.
So it's essentially an expanded idea of the notion of durability or quality.
Yes, I think that you might also need to reconsider what is quality in the future. I would say it's architecture that can stand over a lifetime, maybe not following trends that much, but also that you can demount the building, that also reusing the materials, but also that you can use the building for different purposes. I would say that is a quality itself. And we notice already that for some clients that the attractiveness of their buildings, it's actually that it is sustainable in different ways.
So how do you see this in terms of your customer base? Is this something that they are demanding?
Yes, definitely. Today it's very important to most of our clients. They have climate targets, but as a part of this they also start to have targets concerning circularity. And it's also financial aspects, because in EU we have this green taxonomy that is actually how you value a building out of certain sustainability issues. And then climate and circularity are two parts of this. There are also other aspects. But that also makes it more and more important to really show that your building is sustainable in different ways, but also purposes over time. So I would say this is definitely something that is demanded from clients today. You really need to work as a team in a project. So first of all, it's important to set a target. What do you actually want to achieve in the specific project? And then to start to how will we achieve it? What kind of materials? What kind of energy do we have? And then also to work together and set up the process you're going to work with, and also sometimes also the business model, especially if you're going to reuse materials and work with a circularity approach.
So let's talk a little bit about your sustainability work here at White.
We have a pretty bold vision that we will create a regenerative and carbon neutral architecture. And we will achieve that by 2030. We have the target concerning climate neutrality, but also to enhance circular architecture. We will also focus on nature-based solutions, and that's about implementing green and blue infrastructure in the cities to both to increase the biological diversity, but also to create healthy cities, and also to tackle the challenges concerning climate adaptation, for instance, heavy rains and hotter summers and so on. And then finally, of course, also to focus on health and social values, very important to strengthen the society itself. And I think that is definitely the key for a sustainable future, that we have a more circular approach.